Hello everybody and welcome to Against the Fence. My name is Sai. This is our monthly Aftermath show. This is basically where we're going to be giving you the full recap of all the events that happened over the weekend, and that is UFC card 269. We're also going to be taking a look at the updated fight rankings on UFC.com, and we're also going to discuss what's next for each of the fighters as well as what's next for all of the losers as well. We're going to be rounding off the post-fight gossip as well. So we'll be looking at socials, what's come out of the social media, all the main things that people have been talking about that you might have missed. We'll be bringing it all together in a short snippet and segment for you guys all to check out too. So don't go anywhere and we'll jump straight into it. Okay, so first up, we're looking at Sean O'Malley from the bantamweight division. He defeated Raulian Paiva TKO punches in round one. Superb performance, absolutely amazing. We always knew that Paiva might have a little bit of an issue coming in with his hands down and a guard. And of course, we saw Sean O'Malley take full advantage of that as well. It's fantastic display. Next up, we had the flyweight division. We had Kai Kara France defeating Cody Garbrandt. TKO again punches, spectacular. And that happened again in round one. We know, of course, Cody Garbrandt coming off of a weight cut, going into that fight, his debut at the flyweight division, and of course, Kai Kara was able to dominate with the power, basically, to see that translate and land. Next up, we had in the welterweight division, Jeff Neal versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, sorry. He defeated him to decision. It was a split decision, quite a close fight. 28-29. Judges also had it 30-27 and 29-28 after the full 3 rounds played out on the weekend. After that, we was into the women's bantamweight division, and a lot of you guys heard this news already. It was Juliana Pena who got her hand raised, defeating Amanda Nunes, submission, rear naked choke in round 2. Spectacular and an event that shocked the whole UFC universe. Last up, we had Charles Oliveira defeating Dustin Poirier, submission, rear naked choke in round 3. And amazing, spectacular performance, and really just done the deed, basically. And Dustin Poirier was there with troublesome hands, but Charles Oliveira was able to get the back, find the neck, and that was all she wrote. At this point, usually, yeah, we're back with the boys. But as you can see, I'm going to be a lone ranger today, giving you guys the Aftermath show. We've got a lot happening behind the scenes over here at ATF. Some boys moving house. Like Ash, apparently he's moving house with his bare hands. He's moving a whole home. The guy's a super dad, I tell you. And then, of course, some illnesses, but we'll be back on our feet in no time. But for the time being, you're in safe hands here with Sai, and I'll be able to deliver you the whole Aftermath show from start to stop. But without any further ado, it's probably good that we get into it. And what I'll be looking to get into. Oh, by the way, feel free to chime in on the chats. I'll get a little box up here too, and I'll be able to hear and see to you all. So that's Ash Easton chiming in there saying, yes, Si, good up, Ash. What's good, man? Still can't get over the Nunes losing. Yeah. A lot of us can't get over the fact that Nunes, maybe she can't even, or even Kayla Harrison. We'll get into it a bit later, but there's a lot of money lost with that fight going the way it did. Okay, as promised, we'll get into it. Let's check out the rankings. Let's see what's happening in the bantamweight division. Let's look at that first fight up on the card and see how that all played out. Okay, so here we're looking at the bantamweight division. O'Malley against Paiva. Now, the way this fight went, again, TKO punches first round. Fantastic fashion as well. It's Sean O'Malley once again adding to his knockout reel. So you got Raulian Paiva, who came in, he had his hands down, and Sean O'Malley was able to find his opportunities to land, countering a lot of his strikes. And it was Raulian Paiva sort of being a bit more invasive in that fight, and Sean O'Malley doing what he does best, finding the right opportunities and sort of telegraphing his strikes to the target. Now, he had a great performance. It was really good. And I can see this guy doing some amazing things going into 2022. He's notoriously known for being the unranked fighter and been slightly peppered or protected by the UFC. So we should see some good things coming from him in the year to come. I think personally with a legend like Dominic Cruz, this could be a particularly good matchup for someone like O'Malley. So if you look there, he's going to be stepping into the division after that particular win, and he's there at number 13. So already someone who could be up against would be the Dominic Cruz, who is up there at number 7. That's quite a big reach for him. You know, Dominic Cruz is moving up himself after the win he had on the weekend, but it'll be a big reward for him to step straight into top 10. Now, I know Dana White was someone who's a bit cautious about moving this kid too quickly. He does like him, and yes, he is looking after him. The Dana White privilege. But look, at the same time, you got to give him the fights that actually make sense. Stylistically, I think this could be good. Dominic Cruz's footwork could bring some trouble for Sean O'Malley, the way he moves. Sean O'Malley historically has been doing really well against those sort of brawlers that like to sort of put the pressure on him and push the pace. But he's got to really figure out something completely new with Dominic Cruz. And look, this guy, he's been unranked for the longest time, and he's now in that number 13 once again. So look, let's see how he's going to get his way into the top 10. Other fights that could be good for this guy, Pedro Munoz. That could be a good fight. You know, he's got one win in the last 5. You got Frankie Edgar, who's one win in his last 5 as well, and Marlon Moraes, one win in the last 5. Now, all these could potentially be good fights for the guy. I would like most of all, maybe Marlon Moraes. I think that would be probably quite a good idea. It'll make some sense. See what you guys say in the chat. Pop some comments down below and see who's out of those ones which you think would be ideal for someone like Sean O'Malley. The reason being Marlon Moraes is because Sean O'Malley has been talking for the longest time about being technically undefeated. So it's like if that's the case, he's gonna have to. He's not undefeated because he lost and he got his leg mangled up by Marlon Vera. So he's gotta have to go back in there and get it back. He's gonna have to beat Marlon Vera. He's literally get that win back in order to sort of claim what he's always been claiming. And so, yeah, personally, I'd like to see that. I think that could be a particularly good one to run back. But yeah, Marlon Moraes or Marlon Vera or Dominic Cruz could be some good ones for him to look into next, just to step into the top 10. There's no reason why he should be waiting around dwindling in the 10 to 15 range when he can now be sized up against someone who's already in top 10 status, I think. Cody Garbrandt, on the other hand, what's next for this guy? He's got 1-6. You know, he's not ranked anymore. He's dropped out of the rankings. He did have some beef over social media at a press conference. Depends on which weight class he wants to stay at. You know, he had some beef over Sean O'Malley. You know, we could probably see that fight happen in the future. But he also had some beef with Cody. So depending where he's going to end up in weight classes, does he go up to 155 to sort of to settle his feud with Cody, or does he sort of stay down in the flyweight division? It's too tough to say, really. But in any case, yeah, we'll have to see. But we're going to talk about him in a bit anyway, because of course we've got him coming up in the next matchup, the next fight. But for Paiva, matchup for Paiva, David Grant could be good, or Tony Kelly. He just beat Randy Costa, and that looked strong in that fight. So either of those could be pretty decent for Paiva. Yeah, he's recently dropped out of the rankings, you see. So he was in the rankings when he first accepted a fight with Sean O'Malley. But then, of course, with the shuffle that's happened, he's dropped out. So a couple more fights, and we could see him jumping right back in there. It's possible. He's a good guy. He's a great fighter. He's great with his hands, and he did cause some problems for O'Malley. But, of course, O'Malley got the win, as he always does in the end anyway. All right, let's check out the next fight on the card. So we're going to step into fight number 2, which was the flyweight. Okay, so here it is, the flyweight division. We're looking here at Kai Kara-France, who defeated Cody Garbrandt TKO punches in round 1. So again, it was spectacular fashion. Now, Kai Kara-France was someone who had that wide stance, low stance, which makes sense when you sort of go up against a wrestler. But with someone against Cody Garbrandt, he was just trying to sort of make sure he was widespread, long and rangy. Historically, Cody's had some issues with rangier strikers, but with someone like Kai Kara-France, he was able to sort of punch from range and land and find the target quite effectively. But in the end, it was his power that had it done. You know, he had Cody on the run up against the fence and eventually put him away. Fantastic performance. He was saying in the camp leading up to it, Cody didn't recognize him. So for him, it was just a moment of like, you remember my name now. You know, Cody Garbrandt, of course, being a former champion himself, certainly falling a long way from the heights he was previously been on. But let's talk about what's next for these guys. So for Kara France, Alex Perez could be a good matchup. However, his fight with Matt Chanel has been rescheduled 3 times already. So personally, I think that the UFC should move on and give Chanel someone else. In which case, you know, open for the taking, that fight can happen. You know, otherwise, maybe Matthias Nicolau. No, he just beat Tim Elliott. That could be a good matchup. Just looking over back at the comments again. JK chiming in there for the Cruz being a high risk, high reward for Sean O'Malley just prior before. But, you know, what's your guys' thoughts on this Alex Perez one? You know, Matthias Nicolau, could that be either of these guys be a good option for Kara France, do you think, in the near future? Cody Garbrandt, what does he do? He needs a break. So there in the notes we've got here, he does need a break. We do strongly think that, he's got to figure something out. I think he's got to either go back to the beginning, the moment where it also went wrong. It seems like with this guy, he was built for Dominic Cruz, right? So when he fought Dominic Cruz, he had the whole camp and training all geared around a purpose and encountering all of his flaws. Now, Dominic Cruz has improved massively, of course, since. And as has Cody Garbrandt in some ways. But in many ways, his striking and his abilities haven't really got past the peak that he got to previously before. So he's got to figure something out. You know, he's worked on his striking extensively, but it still does look much the same. He's still the same sort of style fighter he's been for a long time. And until he works that out, it's really tough to say where we want to see him next. But he's just been removed from the bantamweight rankings. Does he continue at flyweight? If he does, I give him Tim Elliott. Might be a good idea. Of course, Tim Elliott lost to Matthias Nicolau. That could be a good shout. But if he does look to see out this feud he's got with Cody Garbrandt and step up into what Garbrandt says is a real man's division, not Garbrandt, sorry, Cody. Covington says it's real man's division, welterweight class. Then yeah, look, that could be another one. And obviously Cody's coming off another loss, and that could be a bit of a money fight. But again, could be a bit of a stretch. But look, what's your thoughts on that? You know, Ash chiming in there saying Kai versus Perez is good, so he likes that one. Yeah, look, I think that could be a good fight as well. I mean, as we've said, it's been rescheduled a couple of times. Matt Schnell and Perez. So where they're going to sort of give that up and just allow Kara France to step on in and get that done, that'd be pretty cool. But either way, could be a pretty decent matchup nonetheless. Hey, Jody Stevenson for chiming in. Hello. Hi. Welcome on to the Aftermath show with Against the Fence. Let's have a look what's coming up next then on the card. So we're looking here at the flyweight division. Let's check out the next fight up, which was at welterweight. All right, so here it is. This is the welterweight division, and here we had both Jeff Neal and Santiago Ponzinibbio battling it out for 3 rounds with a decision, split decision, 28-29, 30-27, 29-28 on the weekend. Now, looking at Jeff Neal, great performance. He did fantastically. Going into this fight, a lot of us were concerned about the sort of DUI charges that were held against him, holding the gun, all that sort of thing that happened outside the octagon. And, you know, we all know the saying. We know that the battle is always won outside of the octagon. You know, that being in the gym, the preparation, and all of that stuff coming into it. And so naturally, we thought a lot of this is going to be a hindrance and it's going to be holding them back. So for us guys at ATF, we kind of counted Jeff Neal out. However, he did massively prove us wrong with a superb performance on the weekend. Was able to just stay consistent behind that jab and just compose throughout the fight. Whereas Santiago Ponzinibbio, he was less so. His composure was fantastic to start, and it sort of slipped away. And Jeff Neal was finding the opportunities and the gap and the holes in Ponzinibbio's game. So yeah, performance fantastic over the 3 rounds. It was as close as it can be, as you can see, split decision, and ultimately Jeff Neal came out on top. Now, what's next for Jeff Neal? He's could go against Michael Chiesa. That could be a good matchup. Why Chiesa? He's coming off of 2 straight losses, Michael Chiesa. He's also probably going to be out for an injury as well. I'll touch on it a bit later in the socials, but he did have a bit of a wild night on the weekend, supporting his girl Juliana Pena. He got himself a bit of a nasty injury. So yeah, when he recovers and comes back from that, look, maybe that can happen. We can see Jeff Neal going against Michael Chiesa. What's your guys' thoughts for someone like Jeff Neal? Do you want to see him going up against Chiesa, or do you think anyone else in the division might be a good shout for him? He's currently sitting at number 12. Chiesa's sitting at number 9. Yeah, it gets him into the top 10. And Jeff Neal is slowly been on the decline from that division. So it'd be great to see him sort of move his way back up. Now, aside from that, Santiago Ponzinibbio. What's next for Ponzinibbio? Robbie Lawler. Now, we all love a legendary fight, and Robbie Lawler is like a legend of legends. And we reel him out when you got someone else who's of age or been around since day dot, and we just want to see a big bash up. And Robbie Lawler's your guy to go up against for that. That's what he's in the UFC for at the moment. I think he's just like the legend. I don't know, challenger, I guess. But he's a winner of the Salikov and Pereira fight. Could probably be a good idea. But he was scheduled to fight Salikov before January last year, Robbie Lawler. But Santiago Ponzinibbio could be a decent matchup for him should that fight be made. I'd love to see that. I think these guys got some great styles, and seeing that in the octagon could be mad, actually. Jordan chimes in there. He does think Chiesa does make sense for Jeff Neal. I can't disagree on that one. I certainly think so. I think that could be a decent one for him. You got other people in the rank in the looking in there like Khamzat Chimaev. I know the boys on the fan cam after we're talking about Khamzat Chimaev. I think we agree that he's on his way up, so he should continue going up. But those who are on the way down from the top 10 should be meeting with someone like Jeff Neal stepping in, be that potentially Sean Brady or Michael Chiesa. And next up, let's get into the next fight on the card, and we are already at the co-main. This was the big upset of the evening. Let's see what it looked like. Yes, okay, and look at that. New women's bantamweight champion, Juliana Pena. That picture's not been changed in a minute. The reason being, of course, is the GOAT herself has just been there since forever. Amanda Nunes has been holding down the belt in this division, but Pena's just been confident that it would be her one day, and she's been coming through with sheer confidence from day dot, saying that she should be the one to fight Nunes. She got the opportunity, and she did what she said she was going to do in superb fashion as well. It was amazing when you sort of saw the way that Amanda Nunes stood face off with Pena and just started punching each other's face off. It was like, this is dangerous for Pena. This is not what you want. She's got to get close and take down. But fundamentally, she got off some really significant shots, some great hits on Nunes in the stand-up as well. Although she did win by submission, in the stand-up, it was superb and just spectacular to see. But I guess the whole idea is, with someone like Pena, her path to victory, which we sort of draw out and thought would be a good idea going into the fight, was certainly getting it down. And that's what happened in the end. She was able to get the back and just choke Nunes out. So yeah, look, amazing, remarkable, job well done. But again, an event that shocked the whole UFC universe. If you wasn't up to date about that so far, I don't know where you guys have been. But yeah, it was pretty epic. But what's next for someone like Pena? Pretty straightforward, really. Rematch. It's there if Nunes wants it. I can't see any reason why Nunes doesn't want it. I mean, if that performance was just an idea of her giving up on the whole UFC world altogether and hanging up her gloves and just wanting to go off and be a mum, then that would probably be the only reason why I think she wouldn't take a rematch. But at the same time, there's many reasons as why she wouldn't do that at this point. She could have done it before or even after this fight. She's an absolute goat and a champion. So I imagine she's going to come back and claim that status before doing much else. So that rematch is there, and it's just waiting there on the Nunes's table to accept and get signed off and get done and sorted. But what if Shevchenko decides to go up and challenge Pena, though? There's a big question. What if Shevchenko decides, you know what, this, I mean, she might see some flaws in Pena's game. She might see some opportunity there. She might want to sort of step in to the bantamweight division and just, give her a run for money, be a two-time title holder. Why not? But if Nunes does get injured, this is just, I guess, some of JK's wild thoughts here. This is just the idea that it could be a good idea. It could be fun. Realistically, and whether it would happen, you got to start aligning some stars here. But, effectively, if Nunes does get injured, this could be something that could happen. Could. But, the rematch is there. So what's next for Pena? What's next for Nunes? It could very much look like that. We won't mention Kayla Harrison until we get into some of the socials a bit later. But, that's another sort of fun thing. Was hoping to see being talked about at this particular point in time. However, things didn't pan out the way we thought they would with that event. So this is where we are. But let's get into the final event of the evening, the main event, the one we've all been waiting for. And let's have a look at how that ranking sizes up, shall we? Okay, and here it is. We're looking at the lightweight division now. And of course, the story of how this one went down. Charles Oliveira defeating Dustin Poirier, submission, rear naked choke in round 3. Now, this was a superb fight. It was great. It was awesome. It had some strengths from Poirier shining through. We had some weaknesses from Oliveira sort of becoming evident as well. But in the sort of lead up to the event, if you caught the People's Pick show, we were talking about who decides where this fight takes place. We put a hat on Oliveira for that. He's got the takedown ability. He can take this into deep waters. If the stand-up does get too much for him, then he could potentially lean on his takedown skills, and that's exactly what we saw happen in the fight. He was able to sort of cling on to Poirier, wear on him, and just like a leech that he is, he just doesn't allow him to get back to his feet. And the moment he moves to do so, it opens another opportunity for Oliveira to sink a little bit deeper and just sort of secure the back, and then inevitably the rear naked choke. And look, this guy's hailed for having the most submissions in UFC for a reason. The fight game for someone like Dustin Poirier there would have been absolutely at all costs keep him away from you. But Poirier does like to fight close and get in there. Again, fantastic fight. We absolutely loved it. If you haven't seen a reaction yet, go back and check that out on the channel as well. The reaction was pretty epic, as they always are for Charles Oliveira fights, apparently. But let's look into what's next for this guy. So, the rankings, how they've changed. Justin Poirier's falling down into number 2, but remaining as champion is Charles Oliveira himself. Now, in terms of how this is going to be sizing up and what's next for him, Charles Oliveira, a good fight for him could be Justin Gaethje. People have been calling out for it already. We'd love to see that and have that happen. I think that could be realistic. Now, there's been some things, and we'll touch on it in social media a bit later, about Conor McGregor piping up. But, I think that's just far more hearsay than it is anything that we can seriously look into. But at the same time, it's an exciting fight and a sensible fight would be the next number 1 in the division, Justin Gaethje. He's been waiting forever. It's his time for it. But this is a really stacked division. So there's a lot of good fights that could be made here, if not now, in the near future. Be that Beneil Dariush, be it Islam Makhachev. Now, of course, you got these guys got to battle it out first before getting an opportunity. But 2022 looks really exciting for this division. Immediate sort of matchups in the near future. Yeah, I would like Justin Gaethje being a sensible one to go for here. We've got Ash chiming in saying that Dustin versus Chandler could be quite good. He thinks that's going to be fire. And, that takes us on to the next point. What is next for Dustin? He's in at number 2. He's got to sort of remain there in that sort of top 5 area. He's got to wait for the champion belt to be shuffled up again before he gets his shot, most likely. So what does he do while he's waiting around? And, Ash seems to think Chandler. I think that would be a good idea. Michael Chandler could certainly be a good fight for him. Jordan's chiming in saying the leg kicks from Gaethje could be pretty dangerous. So yeah, it's in terms of like Charles Oliveira, if he's fighting Dustin Gaethje, that's one of the things he should be looking out for. Most importantly, those leg kicks. But at the same time, for Gaethje, he's got to be playing that long game. He's got to be keeping away from Oliveira because in a takedown, it's just too suffocating, too dangerous. Who else for Poirier though? He could be the backup for Makhachev versus Dariush in February, maybe. A win over either puts you back in line, especially if Gaethje beats Oliveira. So can Poirier find himself another title fight at the end of 2022? I mean, it could be. It could be possible. It could happen. Should Gaethje beat Oliveira? Yeah, I think so. I mean, unless there's going to be like a big feud breaking out between Poirier and Oliveira, and I don't know if these guys got the memo in UFC, but as it seems these days, the more foul mouth you are to your opponent, the more likely you're going to get a fight and a matchup. And these guys have just been not so much not offering him £20,000 after a fight, which is a super generous offer. I have bear in mind. I mean, I love that. It's great. That's why everyone loves Dustin. He's an absolute diamond, like in every sense of the word. But jumping over the socials with like like calling out your opponent, what Cody and Conor McGregor have been doing. These guys they're just really good at sort of promoting fights and making fights happen, and that's just one of the ways to do it and get it done. So yeah, should Dustin Poirier want to get another shot at gold? Chances are we got to see some things happening at the top of the division. Justin Gaethje's got to get that win, and maybe if he steps on in and does get that take that fight in February between Makhachev and Dariush. We can see him lining up for it sooner than we might have thought. But until then, I think Michael Chandler, like you said, Ash, wouldn't be a silly option. That would be quite a smart thing to. That would be quite a smart next fight to see there. And out of that top 5 in the division, it's hot, it's dicey, nice and dicey. But yeah, fair enough. Not to mention. Dustin, I know we said, of course, Dustin Poirier going up again against Gaethje at the end of the year. He's got a win over him already, actually. So, there we go. We could even see that, which I had a big question about him jumping into number 2, in fact. The fact that Dustin Poirier's gone down to number 2 after he's just lost a champion, I was scratching my head at because Covington stayed at number 1 after losing to Usman. And Dustin Poirier moved down to number 2 despite having a win over Justin Gaethje. So yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on there in the sort of rankings and how to move things around and what makes sense to these guys, but I don't know. It seems like it's different rules for different people, but either way, it could be quite good. So look, that actually draws us to the end. I'll take us back to the main screen, shall we? Get this down for a second. That takes us back to the end of the rankings, the lineups. This is the Aftermath show, and as you know, it's just a perfect opportunity to look at what's changed since the fights, what's going to make sense going forwards, what we'd love to see, what's going on. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep in tune to when these come out. These come out after every single pay-per-view event that we run. Not every single event, but every pay-per-view. But the last thing to get into now, and it's not going to be for too long, we're going to be jumping into the socials. So a good opportunity to look at what's going on social media-wise, what's been said on socials, what's been said over the internet, and then we'll be able to sort of wrap up and call it an evening. But yeah, feel free to chime on in again in the chats if you've got anything more to shout out. But shout out to you guys who are already on the chats, Ash, JK, and Jody up there. And those of you guys, others in the chats haven't been able to see nor read out. It's always good to have that engagement. Okay, let's have a look at the social screen. Okay, so let's check it out, right? We're going to be looking at the news, and the whole idea of the social screen is, as I said earlier, just captivating all of the noise from the weekend and bring it into a nice short snippet, telling you what all the things mean and what you should be focusing on, really. But let's get into it with story number 1 of the evening. So, as you can see here, number 1 story of the evening, it is the win. Pena stuns the UFC universe with one of the game's biggest upsets against the GOAT Amanda Nunes. Again, if you haven't heard about this already, you've probably been under a rock somewhere. But yeah, or you're not a big UFC fan. But everyone's just been talking about it, and there's been a lot of news about it as well. But here's something significant. She made history by becoming the first woman to give birth and then become a champion. So yeah, she's the first UFC mum champion in that sense. But the scenes after the triumph were just incredible. You know, she was happy, she was in tears, she was all over the place. It was fantastic. And it was, once again, just a really, really good job well done. She's been saying it's going to be happening for the longest time, and finally, I guess we got to see it happen, which is just so nice. Next up, we had UFC fighter Michael Chiesa was dragged out of the T-Mobile Arena after having a little bit too much to drink last night. Last night on the weekend. But the point of that is, yeah, he actually had an injury, right? So he in attempts to celebrate with his teammate Juliana Pena, he pulled off this huge upset, of course. He didn't get a chance to even get to the octagon because before he could, he fell and he cut his eye after jumping over the barrier and running into the audience, running, ringside. So that's why I was mentioning earlier in the aftermath about how the chances are of this guy being ready for his next fight, he's probably got to wait until he gets recovery first. I don't know how bad that injury was, but yeah, he cut his eye, so he got asked to leave. A little bit too much to drink. Not ideal, but there you go. Next up on the socials, we're hearing Chael Sonnen pipe up again. So he said that Pena win was more of an Amanda quit. So Chael Sonnen was quick to call out the win, or even just sort of nullify the performance behind Pena by saying that it was more of a mentality thing with Amanda Nunes. He noticed that the choke, he thought it wasn't enough for her to quit. It just mentality. She gave up. To sort of tap her out, she gave up. Now, of course, on the flip side to that, Pena's been fighting back and saying, look, I was about to rip her head off. It makes sense that she chapped out. But, you shouldn't take anything from this woman. She did an amazing job. She's a fantastic inspiration for many mums, and she came in here and done exactly what she said she's going to do. But Chael Sonnen jumping in there thinking that it was a bit more of a mentality thing and it was more of an Amanda quit. But something else that certainly suggests is a bit of as something particular going around the social spirit this weekend, because even Colby was reported to have accused Poirier of having a quitter mentality. Now, he punctuates his insults with a dare for him to step into the 155-pound division, which he claimed, as I mentioned earlier, being the real man's weight class. But he tried calling Cody Garbrandt up into his division so he can sort of have a fight and battle it out there. But sorry, I said Cody Garbrandt, I meant Poirier. Poirier up to his division so he can have a fight and battle out there. But yeah, the whole idea was, he could just call him out for having a quitter mentality. He felt like he should have gone the full duration against someone like Oliveira. But someone calling him out quitter mentality, but he's coming off of losses himself. It could be a little bit big, a bit too big. But there we go. Next story up on the cards, we're looking at story number 4, and this is Conor calls out Champ. Now, these guys, be it Colby Covington, be it Conor McGregor, they know how to work the media. They know how to get into the limelight, of course. And it wouldn't be an event if Conor McGregor wasn't chiming in on it. So Oliveira replied to McGregor, and he said impossible timeline for this weekend's fight card. If he was going to have a fight out with him at the champion or given the opportunity to fight for the belt. So it was a bit of a rhetorical response, of course, because it's just outlandish call for the former title challenger. And it's just, not likely something for you to see come into fruition. But again, it gets the social world speaking, so Conor McGregor's piping up and saying what he can. Now, Dana White was quick to put some punctuation on all of this, and he said Conor will not be the next fighter for the champ belt. So it does make sense that, when we spoke earlier in looking at the whole ranking card, Oliveira and Gaethje could probably be far more likely to see rather than a matchup between McGregor himself. Final story on tonight, and we are looking at the ringside Kayla Harrison, who was in the house on UFC 269. Now, the main point we're getting at here is the loss cost Amanda Nunes mega millions in the fight versus Kayla Harrison. So this fight wasn't just a loss on the record, but it was a big loss on opportunity, what was soon to come. Now, we all know that Kayla Harrison has been in talks with Dana White, and there's a whole lot of speculation about maybe stepping into UFC. Nothing was guaranteed or said for sure yet, but it was speculated, and it was possible to happen. Now, Kayla Harrison was spotted ringside screaming the F word as Amanda tapped out on the fight card to Pena. Now, you would probably do the same if you lost millions as well, possible pounds in a fight as well. Now, Dana and Harrison, yes, they were in talks, but the fact that she was ringside and she was this furious about the loss, it certainly cements the suspicion that she was on her way into the UFC. Now, Harrison herself could still sign with White's promotion company, but it's that clash between her and Nunes is not likely to be anything happening in the near future. So that mega £1 million fight could be off the cards for now. It could spiral back around in the future. But just know they are in conversations, and we could see her actually stepping into UFC in near future. Interesting. But that's all for me with the socials, and we're all up to date now and back to the main screen. I got to tell you, it's a bit lonely being here without the boys. I'll tell you what. But I guess we're getting through this in speed. We're wrapping up now, and this is what we have to say has just been an amazing event, UFC 269. We've loved every moment of it, watching it from start to stop. And we're going to be back next week or this weekend coming even, with the next fight card up. So it's Lewis versus... the whole fight's going to be split out between Lewis and Chris Daukaus. So we're going to be doing the watch along as per usual, starting from 12 p.m. a.m. our time, so late night on Saturday, but early morning Sunday. So if you're staying up for that, chime on into the watch along. We're going to be giving the full coverage as we always do. But also like and subscribe to Against the Fence, so stay up to date with all of our things coming out this week, be it the posts that we've got coming out, and also all of the UFC content. But as we always say, if you're a big lover of the UFC, then this indeed is the place to be. Now, again, we'll be back in supreme fashion in the new year with another Aftermath show, and we'll have the boys back. Full house, I assure you. But until then, good night, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of the week. We'll see you soon. Take care.